Welcome to episode 13 of Talking Shit About with me, your host, Elizabeth, aka DJ Lizard Breath, aka Killizabeth. I've got the dog Marty with me in the background. We're currently in Missoula, Montana. Unfortunately, one of my grandfathers passed away, and so I have come down for his memorial service. And I've also decided to take the opportunity to visit friends and family, so it's not, just a trip for a solemn occasion, although it is going to be a celebration of life, which I think is great, and I'm looking forward to seeing my family, and my time here has also been spent doing interviews for the podcast. I was inspired to do a series on grief. I'd been thinking about it for a while, and then when my grandpa passed and I realized I would be in Missoula for a while, I put out a call on Facebook for my friends and family to see, and, reached out and said, hey, if you're interested in talking about grief and loss, hit me up. I'm your gal. And I had an overwhelming response, and the one person I had actually reached out to said yes, and that'll be Ferd. Hell yeah, Ferd. But first up, we have my friend Amanda, and I am very grateful that she did this interview, and it's phenomenal, and she's extremely vulnerable. So Amanda, thank you again for sharing with us your story. I wanted to let you know that we will be talking about suicide and emotional and physical abuse. So if that's gonna be a little too much for you this episode, then maybe skip this one. But it is good, and there's not that much detail, but I just want you to be aware. Marty also barks at about 6 minutes in. It's very loud, so heads up for that. There's also some background noise with the AC because it was hot as fuck, but that shuts off about 7 minutes in, so don't stress, just hold on, and it'll be worth it. So actually, one more thing. Before you listen to this episode, pause it, go to the show notes, and click the links to go look at Amanda's art, because I think you'll get a lot more from it this episode if you see the artwork visually, not just her descriptions. Plus, you should just check out her art anyways. You can do that at amandabar.com or on Instagram at amandambar. And again, I'll have links to those in the show notes. So, without further ado, let's talk some shit. Hi, Amanda.
Or take it squeak.
That's fine. I am here today in my first in-person interview for the podcast with my friend Amanda Barr. Are you cool with using your last name?
Yeah.
Cool. And Marty, and we're in Missoula visiting. Amanda's the third KBGA alum I've had on the show, and she has many degrees and credentials, and I'm going to let her list them off. So, Amanda, welcome.
Hello. It's nice to see you.
Yeah, I know. It's been a while.
It's been a little bit. It's been a pandemic.
Yeah. That's the whole thing.
So yeah, hi, I'm Amanda. I do have many degrees. I might be obsessed with collecting degrees at this point. I have a BA in Spanish. I have a master's in modern languages and linguistics, focused in Spanish. And now I have an MFA in studio art and an MA in art history. Those are my most recent two. So I've lived a couple of lives. I was a Spanish teacher at community college for a while. I've been a studio artist since 2009 in ceramics mostly. And I've worked in museums and galleries and at a radio station. I was a vet tech for a hot minute right out of high school, bit of pharmacy tech. a lot of random side jobs you do when you are an artist.
Yeah.
So I've been a web designer, and I still freelance on that. I write. I run a couple nonprofits.
What kind of stuff do you write?
Mostly I write about things related to ceramics. But if someone approaches me with a project, I write whatever. I did a lot of articles for a book that I also copy edited and published through Blurb that was on endangered species.
Cool.
That another artist she was making urns for all of the native endangered species that were native to her home in New England.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wrote essays on those endangered species.
Oh, cool.
So I've been a scientific writer.
Tell us about your art and your mediums.
So primarily, obviously, clay, ceramic. I started out as a potter full time, and then got into more sculptural art when I went back to school. I finished my first graduate degree in 2008, and then I went back in 2015 to do a post-bac, which is a little bit like a fifth year, but for no degree. It's a certificate. And I started doing more sculptural type of work there. And when I got into grad school for the second time here in Montana, I went kind of full on with the sculpture. And even kind of my pottery had a lot of surface design, and a lot of that was from my emotions. Like, I had a whole series that was just cloudy gray skies, storms. Occasionally there'd be like a little rainbow in the design, but a lot of it was storm clouds and umbrellas, and it was about depression and all of that.
Do you want to elaborate on the series?
Yeah, I started that series around the same time that my ex-husband left me for my maid of honor.
Oh, God.
I've had that toy for like 15 years, so if it gets destroyed, it's lived a good life.
Marty's playing with cat toys right now. She's having a great time.
What? What do you want? So those were mostly like, we're talking mugs and bowls and vases, with this pattern. Like, I would, do a gray, kind of almost watercolor-ish, just loops and cloud-looking things, and then I printed on clay with like an underglaze color, and I would print these.
Marty wants to be in on the interview.
Marty,
you have to wait your turn.
Marty's like, it's very sad. It was a very sad time. I would print these kind of deco clouds in different shapes and colors, and then I had a sewing tool that I would dip into the ink, and it would create these kind of linear rain patterns. And that was like my major design for probably a decade, when I was just making pottery to sell.
That's cool.
And some people were like, oh, it's such a cute design, it's so beautiful. And I would just smile and be like, this is my abject depression.
What were you thinking? This is kind of a weird, vague question, but like, what was your process like creating those, like, emotionally for you? Like, did you find it was like therapeutic, or was it like hard to do?
Well, it was, some of the things that I would make them simply because they would sell. So at the time, like, vintage looking owls and foxes were really big. This is around 2012, 2013.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And those pieces I would make in like bright colors, like oranges and that mustard yellow that was really huge. And I would print, and those wouldn't have a lot of intricacy in the decoration. It would just be like pops of color and like the animal, and they were still popular. They still sold a lot, but those were the ones where I would just sit at my work table and just sort of make them. Uh-huh. But when I did anything with my kind of Cloudy Skies series, they got so much extra attention and so much extra detail because like I was painting my feelings essentially. And when I went and started to go into sculpture, I leaned way more into that. And I started to make, the first sculptures I did were actually still pots. They were larger pots. They were like big punch bowls and stuff. But I made them in a way, and I would kind of poke holes in them and stuff, so that when they fired, they would like get these huge cracks and they would fall over. Mm-hmm. And they would just get they were porcelain. They were this really like perfectly like thrown, like the artistry was all there, and then they would purposefully be destroyed.
That's really cool.
And people were like, that's just exquisitely beautiful. And I'm like, yeah, it looks nice on the outside, but it's complete, like it's destroyed from its function. Mm-hmm. Like it's torn apart. And, you know, I can put on a smile like a normal person. But like inside I am pretty broken. Yeah. I've been through a lot. So that's when I started really being much more like directly representational in my work. Mm-hmm. And that's continued. Well, that was my thesis, my MFA thesis was called Lost in Translation. And it was text in neon. I learned to pen neon for my thesis.
Yeah, those are so cool.
And they're like up here in my house.
Yeah, and they're gorgeous.
And each one is a different word in a different language. And it's just one single word.
So what's this one over here, this yellow one?
The yellow one is beschämt, which is German for ashamed. Mm-hmm. And that's just the neon over there, but it was surrounded by a frame of ceramic pieces that were actual flowers that I collected and thistles and a bunch of stuff that I dipped in clay and fired out that were like sharp objects. And they, because flowers are so delicate, like you can dip them in clay and fire it, but once the flower falls out or burns out, you're left with this really thin kind of shell of the object. So it's really fragile. And so it was just crumbling. And there was really, the point is like this framework for the word was just barely holding together. But it had like what looked like flowers and what looked like spiky, thorny things, which were thistles that I collected from this empty lot right next door to my apartment. And my hands got torn up so bad making that work. And that piece was actually made about my mother. Mm-hmm. Right before the pandemic, I'd gone home to visit my family. And it's very hard for me to go home, and I don't really talk to my family a lot. Mm-hmm. I had a lot of trauma growing up, like childhood trauma, abandonment issues, like you name it. And I didn't make a chicken dinner one night that I was home. Mm-hmm. And when my mom got home, she was super mad and screaming at me, and then yelled, like, she got up on the couch and was jumping like Tom Cruise. But she was like jumping up and down yelling, "I'm ashamed to have raised you as a daughter."
Oh my God.
And my dad is sitting in his recliner reading a newspaper. Like, no reaction.
It's like the dad Ted from Stranger Things.
Yeah, it's just like so normal for her to do this that he's just like, whatever. But I'm like, are you... Okay, one, I'm 38. I'm a guest here at this point. Mm-hmm. You've refused to let me use the car to drive to see some friends because we're in the middle of the country, mm-hmm. like on a farm. I can't go anywhere without a vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to go down to Kansas City to see some friends who there was an art show up that I really wanted to see. And my mom was like, well, what, the roads aren't very nice. It's snowing. We don't want you driving. Mm-hmm. Like, y'all, I live in Montana now. I'm an adult enough that I can drive in snow. In fact, I do it every day where I live.
It seems like there's like a control thing going on.
But only when I'm there. But it's like very regressive too, like suddenly I'm 16. But it was the expectation of like, I should have known that she wanted me to make her dinner.
Yeah, you can't read minds.
No. Especially not if you're autistic. Which my mother won't admit. That's another thing, is she like is a pharmacist, but I have to be lying about all my medical things. She's like, well, I never knew about that. Like, that was never diagnosed when you were. I'm like, I haven't lived at home for over 20 years now. Maybe some things have changed. So yes, that was the last time I've seen my parents. Mm-hmm. She tried to kick me out of the house that night.
Oh. Well, you forgot to cook the chicken dinner, so.
Over some chicken. And I had my 2 cats they were like 4 months old at the time with me. And she was like, no, you're going to go to the airport and you're just going to wait there until your flight in a day and a half. Like, no, I'm not going to, like, I could do that if it were just me, but I have 2 small creatures counting on me.
Yeah.
So no. And so I went to bed and she stormed up into my room at 7 a.m., screamed at me again, slammed the door, and she did that 4 or 5 times.
Oh my God.
And I'm just like, okay, look, I've already decided I'm done. You don't have to keep reiterating it. Mm-hmm. Because I'm ashamed to have raised you as a daughter. It is a lot. And it was actually the first piece that I thought of for that exhibit, because it was just like I couldn't get it out of my head.
Yeah, that's a lot to deal with.
Yeah, and not the first like big moment of my mother saying something that's just like shoving a knife in you. So like I said, my ex-husband left me for my maid of honor, and my parents came up to help me move out of my townhouse that we had, and my mom was upset at like things that we owned. I was like, well, I'm just putting it,
business.
I'm putting this stuff is all in a box and you're taking it out of a box. I'm criticizing it. And I kept being like, stop, you're not helping. That's done. And I don't need the commentary. Mm-hmm. Like, why do you own this? Why do you own that? And so she blew up and she's like, well, if you're this much of a bitch, no wonder he left you.
Oh my God. What did that feel like at the time when she said that?
I mean, I'd been out of the ICU for probably only 3 or 4 weeks at the time from a suicide attempt. Mm-hmm. When he had told me that, like, he had to cheat because I was a bad wife and wasn't able to give him what he needed because I'd just broken my back. And that he didn't deserve a disabled wife.
What an asshole.
Because he was going to be an aerospace engineer. He deserved better. And also, like, only losers do art. Everyone knows that if you can't hack anything else in college, you go to art school. And I'm like, but I'm doing art on the side and I'm being successful with it. Like, I'm in galleries and I didn't go to art school. I have a master's in modern languages. He's like, you could never do aerospace engineering. And I'm like, sure I could. I just chose not to because it seems boring. And I can do math fine, though. Like, you're just a dick.
Yeah. He sounds like an asshole.
Oh, yeah. Turns out. Total ass. When he told me he didn't deserve a disabled wife, it was really funny because he has Tourette's. So, it's mostly this head tilt where he looks like a bobblehead.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this doesn't translate well on a podcast, but his head was twitching
Yeah.
the whole time. He said, "I don't deserve a disabled wife." And I just am like, I'm sorry, can you see yourself? How ridiculous.
Such a disconnect.
Yeah, huge disconnect. Huge.
How old were you guys when you got married?
24.
Okay.
Do not advise. Also, we only got married.
Now.
We only got married because at the time we were just living together. At the time, my mother kept calling and telling me I was the reason that she was going to hell because she'd raised a whore for a daughter. So, I don't know. Maybe I should have figured it out sooner that if I just didn't talk to her, things would be better. But I don't know.
Yeah. That's
It's
intense.
difficult also. Sorry.
Okay.
It's difficult also because as a disabled person, like I've had epilepsy my whole life, and this was later, until the Affordable Care Act, could not get insurance. So the only way I could like get around that loophole was have my parents pay for the same insurance I've had my whole life, like what I was on since I was a kid. Mm-hmm. So they were paying for my health insurance and asking me like, when are you going to be an adult and have your own health insurance? I'm like, when I don't know. It doesn't really work in a way that works for me. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know that you think that there are certain parameters around adulthood, but there are also kind of some exceptions to who that works for.
Yeah, and it's like the world is not the same as when you were like, or they were your age. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this, it's totally different. Like,
yeah,
you can't have standards for your children that are the same as your childhood because it's not going to be the same. And like being an adult beyond childhood, like it's not the same.
You can't have the same standards for both your children when you treat them differently. Like they paid for my brother's college.
Huh.
They took out loans for him.
What did he go to school for?
History. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And I was always told, like, no, you're going to have to pay your... So I worked, like, 40 hours a week through high school, 90 hours in the summer, and worked 40 to 50 hours a week all through college. My brother didn't work, ever.
Is he older or younger?
Younger.
Okay.
And he now has, like, a wife and a kid, and they own a house, and all these things, and I'm like, do you maybe see why these two situations might be different? Maybe he had a little easier start.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing what some, like, positive reinforcement can do and, like, a little stability, which it sounds like there was not for you.
Not really, no.
Yeah.
So, and also, like, I did end up in a lot of abusive relationships, which, you know, when it's all you know, when my entire relationship with my mother, because my dad's a very quiet person, so, but it's just like criticism, and I got to watch my brother, who was not as good at school as me, be like, you got a C in math? You get a party or a cake, or we're giving you money. And I was like, I got an A-. You're grounded. You're punished. Because we know you can do better. I'm like, excuse me, but I did get all A's. I'm on the honor roll. Yeah, I got one slightly lower grade, but I'm also working a full-time job. I'm in Quiz Bowl. I'm in the school play. I am in band, in marching band, and choir. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't have any extracurriculars.
The extracurriculars are, like, key on resumes and shit.
Yeah. I guess that's a big experience of loss has been, like, family, my marriage, my entire friend group, who, when I was hospitalized after my ex-husband was like, you don't even deserve to live, you're such crap. Like, I was pretty broken. I was in a severe depression because for the first time I physically couldn't do anything. I had a broken spine. Mm-hmm. And then him telling me that, like, that made me a bad wife and was the reason he had to cheat. And also, I was treating him as my slave because he had to take out the trash and do the dishes.
Dude, my abusive ex was the same way. And whenever I say my ex, I'm always referring to this one person. Like, everyone else, I'm like, oh, my friend. Or, like, this kid I dated in high school.
Oh, yeah, I have, like, I have college
yeah.
boyfriend, my ex-husband, and my ex.
The ex.
My ex, the reason that I moved from Iowa to Seattle, because he was stalking me. And I couldn't do anything safe. Yeah, that guy. That guy who, my name's Amanda Barr. A little while after I moved to Seattle, he married a woman named Amanda Marr, who could be my sister. And she didn't see any difficulty with that, like any red flags. And I'm like, all right,
huh.
You crazy, but, and I mean, I've been in the psych ward, but you crazy.
Yeah, different breed of crazy.
That is, whew, okay. That's not my circus anymore.
Yeah, not your problem.
Don't care, but holy shit. One letter off of my name.
Yeah, that is so bizarre.
And many people pointed it out to her. Like,
mm-hmm.
She's like, but he has Jesus now.
Oh.
They go to church together.
Oh, good.
I'm like, yeah, he's not a manipulator at all and would never do that.
Was religion a thing in your household ever?
Yeah, I was raised in the Methodist church, but my mom's family was Quaker.
Huh.
Which is so weird because...
I would not have guessed that one.
No, I would always be, like, threatened with, you're going to have to tell your grandmother about this and she's going to be so embarrassed. And over time, I find out that my mother's parents are, like, some of the OG hippies. Like, my grandfather was a nudist, and he was in jail for 18 months as a conscientious objector, both for, like, the end of World War II, and he finally went to, like, be a nurse as they were, like, liberating camps and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And then again during Korea, the Korean War.
Damn.
He also went to jail as a conscientious objector because he's like, no, it says thou shalt not kill. I will not participate even as a nurse in a conflict, in a war. And I came home once with pink hair and my mom was just like, bah! My grandma was like, I like that color.
That's so weird. So you got along well with your grandparents?
Yeah, which is the weird thing. Like, she was so, like, my grandma was so ashamed when I got divorced that she didn't tell anybody. And the next time I came home was for a funeral. Mm-hmm. And it's, to be at one, it was my 18-year-old cousin who had been in a car accident. To be at that kind of funeral and have people being like, well, where's your husband? Like, with another woman. We're divorced. And they're like, well, your mom didn't say anything. Yeah, super awkward. It's like, gee, that could have... She was ashamed. And I'm like, would you prefer I had, like, not signed into the papers?
Yeah, like, what are you supposed to do?
He literally, like, the night that he came and cleared out all his stuff and then told me to go kill myself, he dumped me in the ICU as a Jane Doe, and I was there for 3 days before anyone knew who I was. What was I supposed to do? Like,
she should be pissed at him.
Yeah, no, she was pissed at me because I made him do it. It was my fault. I should have known better than to marry. I should have known better than to marry him.
Well, then why are you getting pissed about the divorce?
She knew before we even got married that it was a terrible idea, and I'm like,
okay,
you never said anything. All of the logic is just blame me. It must be my fault somehow. But, like, could you not have given people a heads up before I show up to a funeral and have to announce to everyone I'm divorced? That's not the right place to do it.
Yeah.
Oh, that was so awkward.
Yeah.
It's terrible. So I don't even... like, that's been, like, a loss that I felt for, like, my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I knew I didn't have approval, or, like, I would come home from college for the summer, and it wouldn't be like, hey, welcome home. It would be like, you got fat. Yes, I'm on a new seizure drug, and you're my pharmacist. So you do know that Depakote is also known as Depa-Bloat because it makes you gain a lot of weight.
Mm-hmm.
So
but
maybe
you're not having seizures, right?
I was still having seizures.
Oh, okay.
I finally switched to another medication that fixed everything, but gave me dry mouth. But it was like, you're my pharmacist,
Mm-hmm.
and you know what meds I'm on, and you know the side effects of those. So why are you fat shaming me?
And it's like, I see myself every day. Like, I know what I look like. I don't need your input. You know?
Yeah. It's like, and you know it's not my fault.
Yeah.
You know it's because of this medication. Like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Like, she'd come over and, like, grab my little
Jesus.
fat roll and be like, you got fat. You shouldn't get fat. You won't find a rich husband that way. And I'm like, that's not my life goal. What the hell? And my brother also got pretty chubby at college, and I don't recall her ever saying that to him. So, standards.
Yeah. Ass backwards.
Yeah. And, you know, I say this a lot, but, like, he can't change the battery in a smoke alarm. Literally, like, they still live, like, 45 minutes from my parents.
Mm-hmm.
My parents have to go down, like, constantly to do things like change light bulbs.
Oh my gosh.
And alarms and smoke detectors. And then one year, I think my mom told me that my dad was really sad because I didn't call him anymore for help doing things like changing tires or fixing my dishwasher or my sink. And I'm like, it's because I can do them on my own.
Yeah.
Because I'm a
then he
functional
should offer to
adult.
help. I don't know. Yeah.
I'm like, I'm sorry I don't need his help. I'm sorry that I learned so well as a child, unlike my brother, that I am capable of problem solving and able to do it.
Your dad should volunteer for Habitat for Humanity, doing home repairs.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, he kind of does. Like, he has a construction business in the town.
Gotcha.
And he mostly does it for the church. And they've gone on some mission trips where he's done construction things, including Africa. Like, okay. Yeah, there's
Classic.
there's not houses in your own area code
Yeah.
that could use that. That's fine. They got to go to Niagara Falls. Or,
Ooh.
no, not Victoria Falls.
Where's that?
Zimbabwe?
Cool.
They ziplined it.
Ooh.
I was
That
like,
sounds pretty cool.
okay,
actually.
missionary tourism, got it.
Yeah. Volunteerism.
Yeah, it's like, no, that's just like racist tourism. Don't do it. Not to say, I did go on some mission trips, but I was not of the age of consent, so really, I was signed up for them.
Yeah. Where did you go?
A few of them were in the U.S., like Tennessee. There's one in like North Dakota, and there, like when I had just turned 18, I didn't go to Africa.
How was that?
Well, I learned things.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it had an impact on me in a way that I think has at least changed me, and not in the manner that they'd hoped it would. Like, to be all about God and mission.
Mm-hmm.
It was mostly like, why did people spend so much money to send a bunch of teenagers over in a choir to just, like, go to these villages, make them host us when they barely have enough food for themselves, but then they had to feed us, and we sang for them.
That's nice.
I was like, this is shitty.
That's like Scientologists. Like, they have, like, disaster response, but then all they do is just hand out, like, Scientology books.
Yeah. I at least I was living out of my travel, like, carry-on suitcase. Mm-hmm. And had my 2 big suitcases filled with, like, hygiene products and, like, medications and things that were actually needed. And not just, like, carrying on big suitcases full of clothes. Mm-hmm. So I wore the same, like, 3 outfits for the entire trip.
How long was it?
We were over there for a couple months.
Oh, wow.
We also went on safari.
Ooh.
In Kruger Park. Which was, I was like, oh, wow. This is some white kid shit. This is weird. But, no, I did bring over stuff that was... Also, there were some, a family in the church there that was very good friends with my mom, because my mom has been going there since 1994. Huh. Like, every other year.
Since I was born.
Yeah. And so, I think, I don't know, that might be a thing, too, because, like, she would just leave for the whole summer every few years. I'm like, oh, okay. We really love those people in Africa. Abandon us. Whatever.
Was there ever a point where you, like, realized, or, like, have you been able to come to terms with, like, that's not what a healthy household is? Or did you always kind of feel something was wrong?
I mean, there were several points where I was like, this isn't right. A lot of those times were when my brother was, like, trying to kill me. He had... what wasn't diagnosed back then, but it's called intermittent explosive disorder.
Oh, I've never heard of that, but I don't like the sound.
It usually happens with young males and is a puberty thing, but, like, I probably had 30 concussions before I was 18, because he would throw, like, rocks at my head. He would hit me with baseball bats.
Jesus.
There was a couple of incidents with butcher knives. I learned how to fight for my life when I was young, because he, like, would just I'm getting my septum fixed finally in a couple of months, because he hit me in the face. So, like, I'd be, using the computer or something, and he decided he wanted to use it, so he'd come over and just slug me in the face. And so my nose has been, like, permanently broken for 20 some years, and I get allergies really bad, and then I get infections because nothing can drain because my nose is broken. So I'm finally getting that fixed. Actually, here I'm getting a little surgery.
Yay.
To fix it. But, like, it was just a thing. Like, my brother would routinely try to kill me in unexpected ways, and it was really mostly when I got to college and was around other people that, people would talk about their home life, and I would say something that I thought was funny or something, and people would be like, what the hell? Like, that is abuse. That is not normal. And their reactions would make me go, huh. But I knew a little bit when I was in, like, 7th grade. I had a friend whose house I would go over to. And the dynamic there was so different. I was smart enough to know that, like, yeah. And I was smart enough to know not to bring other kids over to my house. Because my mom would have a fit, or my brother would have a fit. Because my mom would just go off. It's like, she didn't care if there were people, like, guests over. She would just, like, oh, my dad wasn't helping with dinner or something that she just expected him to do, didn't ask. And, like, suddenly a pan of spaghetti just went flying against the wall, and they're screaming and slamming doors, and whatever friend I had over, I'd be like, you can go home now. Sorry.
It's so rough.
So they just, like, stopped having people over. Just kind of stopped having friends. It's like, it's embarrassing. And it's not safe. So I did figure out how I could climb out of my bedroom window and just like run off. Thought about running away a lot, but again, middle of the country. Where do you go? Like, there's nothing.
This was in Iowa, right?
My parents live in Missouri, but it's just south of Iowa, so they're really close.
Yeah, nothing out there.
Nothing out there. The rest of my family is pretty much as dysfunctional. I mean, I never knew, like, if I looked at someone wrong. Because I was also very just like, that's not fair. That's not, like, that's child abuse. Or, like, if I said anything that was like, why do I have to help cook and clean and do everyone's laundry and he gets to play video games? And they'd be like, don't ask questions. Or, like, I'd get smacked or, like, picked up by the hair and thrown against a wall. Like, it's like, oh, yeah, that's not normal. But I know it now. And I know other people who've had similar homes, and it took me a long time to disconnect from them because I just needed the financial support. But I also realized it came with a lot of strings and a lot of guilt, so much guilt. And that it was healthier when I just, limited communication and limited contact. And I was just happier because I didn't have to worry about, like, making up some lie for why I couldn't visit. Or, like, when the first year of COVID was over and, like, we'd had, like, the holidays and people were really upset about not being able to see their family, I was like, this is the best thing that has happened in my life because I didn't have to make up lies or excuses about why I couldn't come home for Christmas or wasn't going to travel and wasn't going to let anyone travel to see me because no one could.
Yeah.
This was fantastic. And I'm like, that was the most joyful part. Like, it was joyful part of COVID. And I realized, like, that's messed up.
Everything's fucked right now. Whatever gets you through it.
It's like, okay, I've got to say, COVID had a plus side.
Yeah.
Didn't have to see my family. Because even, like, the last time I saw them, I'd asked, like, I didn't want to interact with my brother because of the last time I'd seen him and some stuff went down.
He seems pretty level-headed and chill.
Yeah, he's not.
Yeah.
But it's been worse since they had a kid.
Oh, no.
Because his wife is also, like, very neurotic, very OCD, and she's a project manager, so she's very controlling in a lot of ways. And just having a kid amp that up to 1,000,000, and I just can't. I can't. And I'd asked, like, I was like, I have one boundary. Don't try to force it. And of course, I come down for lunch one day, and my brother and sister-in-law are there, and I'm like, boundaries exist for a reason.
Yeah, I asked this one thing.
I asked one thing. So, yeah. It's a process, too. Like, it was Father's Day the other day, and I was sad. But I wasn't sad because I wasn't talking to my dad. It was sad because other people seem to have such good relationships with their families. And I'm like, I wonder what that must feel like. I have no idea.
I just got chills. Not just because of the AC, but yeah.
Yeah, like, I don't have that kind of comprehension. Like, I don't know what that would be like. And I'm sad for myself because I don't experience that. I mean, like, sure, we had good times. I have some good memories, but it doesn't, like, cancel out all the trauma. So I'm like, okay, so this will just be a weird kind of sad. And I mentioned it to my therapist the other day, and he's like, yeah, that makes sense. Sure, a lot of people feel that on days like this. I'm like, I'm sure they do. Like, most of the time I didn't pay attention to it, but this year I just happened to see as I get older, more people's parents have passed away. And I see them memorializing, like,
oh yeah, I'm one of them.
their parents on that on the social media, and I'm like, I wonder what I don't really have any feelings about that. Like, I've sort of just, like, shed them. Like, I'm not even mad anymore. It made like, my mom saying she was ashamed of me made a really great art piece.
Yeah, it's gorge.
And, like, people really responded well to it, and it was truly, like, great. Like, it came from my soul, and I'm really proud of it. And I'm not, like, it doesn't hurt anymore. Because it just, like, burst out like an alien, and is now, it's just gone. It's like, it's in the world, but I'm fine with it now. It's been several years since it happened, and I've talked about it a lot. I had to write about it in my thesis. I've sat here, like, looking at it. It's in my living room now. And it's such a bright, cheery yellow. Like, you know.
Yeah,
I think
I'll link pictures in the show notes so people can see.
I think that's part of why I have been so attached to art and have, like, pushed so much into this sculpture, because it's so much. I mean, making those little cloud cups and mugs and vases was nice, but they didn't have the impact on the viewer the way that the sculptural work does. And that is so, it's cathartic for me, and it's cathartic for other people, and that's been, like, super, like, that's my therapy. I mean, I still go to therapy, but seeing the way that art has connected with people has been kind of the biggest way that I've, like, self-healed, or, you know, self-therapized, because, and it's such a, there's a lot of process that goes into it. So, like, you live with it in your studio for a long time. And it with the neon, I burn the shit out of my hands on every piece. So it's like, it keeps, like, re-traumatizing you in a way.
Yeah.
But you're not thinking about, like, the concept while you're just trying to physically get it to do the thing.
Which is good to, like, get out of your own head too. And, like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Because, you know, that you conceptualize the idea, the piece, like, I draw it out, and then I just do the labor of making it, which is, like, very little thinking, just, like, making it actually come to fruition. And by that point, like, I've lived with it so long, like, in my studio, in my head, in my drawings, and my writings, that it's, like, it's been so over-processed that it has no meaning, which is really a great way to...
That sounds very therapeutic.
Yeah. And I don't know, like, not everyone can be fortunate enough to, like, have that, the kind of, well, time and energy and talent, I guess, to be that kind of artist. But, like, even just, like, consuming the art, just, like, looking at it, interacting with it is great. When I see other people's work that moves me like that, it stays in my head. And I think fuels me into, like, oh, I can make something for myself that deals with that, but it'll be in my way. But it can kind of pull those feelings out too. So it's it's not a glamorous life to be an artist, because you are always poor. But I don't know, I think it does. I don't think I'd still be alive if I didn't have art. You know, after I came out of the hospital from my suicide attempt, I, like, threw myself into my studio and just made and made and made. And processed a lot through the making. And, you know, I was in an incident of gun violence in, like, 2012, and I took that into the studio and made work from it. And that was insanely helpful, rather than just, like, sit and ruminate on it. and be terrified. So I don't know. I need to get off my couch here in a few days or so and get back in the studio and process some new drama.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's my journey.
Thank you for sharing. You've been through so much shit, dude. Holy fuck.
Oh my god. Like, yeah. There are definitely times where I'm like, how am I still alive?
Yeah.
Like, so much abuse, and then, like, I've been in a shooting, and my stalky ex would occasionally, like, actually try to, like, strangle me to death. I'm like, how did I make it this far? Fuck. That doesn't even count all of the, like, medical things where I'm like, oh yeah, my kidney almost exploded once, and like, I have a degenerative disease, and my lungs are crap, and there's a pandemic, and I'm just like, oh, okay, I'm the Energizer Bunny here. Gotta just keep going.
Okay, I've got one last question for you, and then I have to pee really bad.
Okay.
What advice would you give to your younger self, or like when you were feeling your lowest, if you could go back in time and talk to yourself, what would you say?
Don't listen to others when seeking value. You don't need external validation from everyone. Not everyone is going to find you their cup of tea.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not that you're a problem, you're not the disruptor, you are the truth teller, and people cannot handle facing their own flaws. That doesn't mean that you don't have value. It means that they are too flawed to comprehend your value.
One of the things I appreciate about you a lot, I'm fucking up the sentence, embarrassing, is, yeah, your honesty and your willingness to, like, speak up. I don't know, it's something I admire in you a lot. And I know you said you don't need external validation, but I'm giving it to you. You're an amazing artist, you're awesome, and I'm truly honored to consider you a friend.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's finding people who do see that value, because a lot of people are going to run away from someone who tells the truth, because it scares them. It makes them face their own insecurities and their own desire to just be safe and maintain, like, how things are because it is safe. Not everyone is gonna get why someone would want to disrupt that.
Yeah.
And they are going to hate you for it. But they really hate themselves. They just project it onto you. But, like, there are people who are going to appreciate your fire.
Mm-hmm.
Like, your absolute, like, no shits given need for honesty and transparency, and I just literally, like, I can't not say something. It just, like, an inherent inability to stay silent. But there are people out there who will see that as a good thing. Find those people and raise hell.
Yeah. Whoop whoop.
Because, like, if, you know, you look, you can make change. Like, my high school mascot is no longer, it's still a little racist. I mean, the word is racist, but the iconography is not. They were forced to change.
And you played a big part in that.
I was the loudest, and, like, the early, I made myself into the bad guy so that they would hate me. And then, because, you know, white people caused the problem in the first place, it should be a white person's job to fix it. So I started the fire, and then I let them, like, immolate me completely. Like, I became the bad guy in that story. And then the local natives The Kickapoo tribe came in and, did the soft negotiation where they were like, well, yes, this is really bad and we don't approve and it makes us feel bad. And they were accepted with almost open arms because everyone hated the way I did it so much that anyone coming in with a softer message was going to be embraced. And it's just such an interesting strategy to be the loud, angry person who cuts the first stone open.
You have to. Somebody has to do it.
Somebody has to do it. Somebody has to kick the door open, and you will be vilified for it, even though you are totally right. But the next person can get in there and be like, well, and negotiate it, and then the change happens. But going in that door first, you're probably gonna get shot. I had death threats, and one person was like, we should make the new mascot her head on a stick.
Oh, that's very grown up.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? Like,
someone has a hit out on me. Like, if I come back, they're willing to pay like $5,000 for my head.
I can't call
over a high school mascot.
A high school mascot. That is so fucked.
It is, but I would rather have the target be me, the white girl, than any one of the indigenous people who deal with constant racism all the time. I can take that hit. The death threats were quite a bit.
Yeah.
It was
fucking extreme.
It was
Jesus Christ.
Pretty traumatic at the time, but it got done, which was amazing. You can go pee now if you need.
Okay, yes, we're concluding interview, so I can pee. Amanda, I appreciate you being so open and vulnerable, and I appreciate you.
I appreciate you.
Thanks. That's a wrap for episode 13 of Talking Shit About, and our first episode on our grief series. Thank you again, Amanda, for doing this interview, and thank you so much for listening. It's a year of Talking Shit About, and I have been emotionally overwhelmed in the best way with the response and the listens. So thank you, and especially thank you if you've gotten the opportunity to give it a rating or subscribe. Those things help boost me up on the charts and all of that jazz. Not that that's my priority with this podcast, but I think the guests have a lot to offer, and I know I have learned a lot since starting this a year ago, and I just want to spread the word of all of the work that my guests have been doing, because it's good work. Sorry, Marty's looking herself right now, but I'm tired of doing takes. So, anyways, we will see you again for part 2 of Talking Shit About Grief, and I hope you are doing well, and I love you lots. Bye.